Usually around the 1 year point. In general, it's always different depending on the dynamic, but the kind of general archetypal pattern, you could say, is that around a year, the honeymoon phase, like the initial falling in love, happy chemicals and stuff like that, tend to start fading away, depending how much time you spend with each other. I mean, Tristan and I were housemates initially. So we were almost always living together. We had a brief period of living apart, but we went really deep, really fast. We were, in pandemic lockdown together. So so our relationship kind of went faster. While other people might take a bit longer to get past the honeymoon if they're only seeing each other like once a week or something like that. But generally around a year is when some of your patterns start coming up, some of your inner child wounding, some of your traumas. Often in this period, it won't be like enough to break up the relationship, though a couple of our bits almost did early on in our relationship. But
in that period of time, we were not 100% defined on how we were together in a relationship. That secure bond wasn't necessarily there, that firm commitment to show up. So these little things turned big really did stand out a lot more, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely a difference when you've actually committed to being in a securely attached long-term relationship versus when you're like kind of casually dating and some of these things are showing up and you're like, whoa, red flag.
Red flag. Bye.
Yeah. But yeah, no, before we did the coaching, we'd actually got to a really beautiful, secure place. And it was just, these couple of things that would come up when we would be really tired.
We just moved in together, hadn't we?
Yeah.
We just moved in together again.
More
consciously this time.
Yeah.
As a couple.
And there was, just a few things that we'd seen again and again when our resilience was low, like, if we'd had a really big few days and there was just these kind of like niggly things that would show up, or especially around like open relating. And, when Tristan did get to go on some cute play dates and starting to see some of my past relationship poly trauma showing up. We kind of thought that this would be a good opportunity to, before those wounds fester anymore and before they get bigger, like, should we just nip these in the bud now?
Now, I'm sure the listeners want to know what the niggly things were. Come on, let's get some drama on the podcast. Let's get some juicy details.
Oh gosh, I can't even think back to a lot of it now, but it's like in my past relationship, we were open relating and there were a few rules broken, you could say. Just different people, a lot of typical stuff in open relating with, having the other person, like, I know you say that it's going to be casual and then it ends up getting more serious, or like feeling forgotten. Having agreements broken and so trust broken. And in my last relationship, one of his lovers then is now his long-term primary partner. And that was the end of our relationship. So obviously there was still this little wound around that of like, oh, if he starts, dating some cute babe, then he could leave me for her, which is, always a possibility in open relating. But that was still like a bit raw and at the surface a little bit. Even just like a cute little play date would start bringing up that fear of like, oh, this is what happened last time and this is going to happen again. I was just starting to notice, there are still some fresh things that haven't been dealt with that I've been trying to deal with like post breakup by myself, but it felt like I dealt with this all when I was by myself and that I was over it and I'd processed it. But relational wounds come up in relationships. So when you're single, like you can only process so much of it. And then when the context is back and you're in another situation where the same thing could happen again, then that wound can arise. And that was starting to happen for me. And there was also some stuff coming up for you as well. that you wanted to work through? Do you want to share your
Oh,
raw vulnerabilities?
We'll get to the dishes soon.
Okay.